Thank you for tuning in to another Monday night live stream hosted by our friends over on the NFFC. Today, I'm joined by a Football Guys legend, Sigmund Bloom. Sig, I don't know if you know, but my day has been bookended with Football Guys royalty. I woke up early this morning, recorded an episode with Matt Waldman, and now tonight I get to record an episode with you. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this.
Right. The most wonderful time of the year because
It really is.
it gets your juices flowing and it's just the puzzle. Like we're like kittens with a ball of yarn and we're off as we're sitting in that 9 spot.
Right.
And, as we chatted before this started, if you're starting in the 9 spot, running back looks pretty good because there's running backs in the second round that wouldn't be late first round picks in other years, and there's running backs sometimes at the number 9 spot that have a chance to finish as the number 1 running back overall.
And it seemed like maybe a month ago or so in round 3, you were able to get Chase Brown and Omari and Hampton. Felt like you could still get some good running back value there. But this happens every year. We get close to week 1. All these running backs get steamed up, and that nice value that we were able to get in round 3 isn't really there anymore. So I think, we've swung back and forth, it seems like every single year, but this does seem like a year where you can start pretty running back heavy and really get some nice wide receiver value in those middle rounds. McCaffrey goes off the board.
That's
the guy we were hoping
A.
for.
Yeah. So, but we have a chance here. And there goes Malik Neighbors. So, we could go. I think safe is Derrick Henry, and big field going for the fences would be Ashton Genty.
I'll let you make the choice there. I like them both. We did Derrick Henry build last week with Jeff Bell.
Okay, well, let's go with Genty then.
I like that. And Genty, this will be the first one of these that I've done where I've drafted Ashton Genty. And I almost wonder because Genty was going, 7th and 8th in a lot of drafts. How much do you think people are overreacting to that preseason game where the offensive line was just getting beat up? He didn't have any real opportunity to run free there. I almost wonder if this is like that 1 week window now where you can get Genty in the late first and feel okay about it.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I do think that people wanted some excitement. They wanted something to really give them. I finally got to see him on an NFL field, and I'm that much more excited to take him. So you're right; it may open up that window. And I think the main thing here with Genty, other than his illustrious, amazing talent, is the Raiders' offense is going to be a lot better this year. He's part of the reason why, but only one of the reasons why.
Right. And speaking of you want to see it and you want to get that excitement, one name that I'm going to be watching closely today is Travion Henderson because he's a guy that we knew was going to be good, but just immediately translated first touch of his NFL career. Sure, it's preseason, but 100-yard touchdown and then follows that up with these explosive plays on offense. It wouldn't surprise me if we see him go late second, early third in this draft tonight. So definitely a name I will be keeping an eye on here. We're getting called out in the chat, Sig. Jeff Bolton here saying that we played hooky over the weekend, not going to the expo. It looked like a good time for everybody.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hats off to Bob Lung. I mean, for years, people tried to create the fantasy football convention, the place to be in August, and they've really succeeded. And I want to get out there one of these years for sure. And New Orleans is a 365 good times expo. So come on down. True. I want to give anybody and everybody a chance and really an excuse to come down and see us in New Orleans.
Yeah, I went to I've only been to New Orleans once in my life, but it just happened to be the week of Jazz Fest, and it was
there you go.
It was a birthday weekend for a friend. And we went down with a big group of people, and in my early 20s. So as you can imagine, lots of it was a great time. We had a lot there.
You can lean into it. Devin Achane, it's interesting to me too with Devin Achane because we're Tyreek Hill calling him out in short yardage. That Alexander Madison goes down. They bring in Jamal Williams. Madison, I think, was going to be the short yardage guy. And, I'm looking at Bucky Irving and Chase Brown right now as it's coming back around to us almost here. And I like all the second round running backs. Jonathan Taylor. I like Bucky Irving. I like Chase Brown, I think, is a second round. He should be a second round running back. And he may have the highest ceiling of them all with his pass catching ability and just the overall wattage of that offense. So, that's why I really like starting running back this year. And then you don't have to trifle with those 3rd, 4th, 5th round running backs that have flaws. And I do think wide receivers pretty deep this year too. So I think you can find wide receivers in the 5th, 6th, 7th round that you feel pretty good about this year.
The one name that jumps out to me that's still available and might go right here at 15. We'll see who makes this pick, but Puka Nacua was a consensus top 8 pick, and then start hearing about this Matthew Stafford going into his hyperbaric airstream, and now people are panicking about Puka Nacua, and obviously, so those I think those are the two: Puka Nacua, Jonathan Taylor, Chase Brown. I'd be happy with any of those picks right here. Who do you have a strongest lean on?
Well, I'll tell you what, I really like Puka Nacua. I think that he showed us that a la Jamar Chase, a la Justin Jefferson, just because he was incredible as a rookie doesn't mean he's not going to get better and get better. And Jimmy Garoppolo and Sean McVay, I trust them to still keep this offense pretty viable, even if they don't have Matthew Stafford. So I agree. Puka Nacua, I think, would have been a consideration at 9 if we were going wide receiver. So let's go ahead and take 2 number 9 picks and pair up Nacua with Genty. Yeah.
And now we are on watch, of course, with the third round reversal. That does behoove people drafting late in the first round. And that's why we intentionally set this up where we could pick late in this draft. So we get our start here feeling pretty good about that, going with Ashton Jinty and Puka Nacua. And now I think the hope is that at the top of round 3, we can get one of Josh Jacobs, Irving, Chase Brown. And I think the fail-safe option, I'd still feel good about Kyron Williams there. If he's available. So
we'd be doubling up on the Rams there. But yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, like you said, we're keeping our fingers crossed that Chase Brown falls. Or, I'm even okay with Garrett Wilson at that point, just purely for value. And then and this is a good example too of you can't go into any draft rigid. You have to be ready to roll because there's these break points where you might say, well, I have to take George Kittle or I have to take Jalen Hurts, or they let somebody fall too far. So we've got running backs that we can tap into later on. Also, there goes Chase Brown. That's good. That's about where he should be going. I never understood why he was falling to the third round. Didn't need Zach Moss to retire basically to see that. And there's Bucky Irving, which is a good one too, especially with Rachaad White a little banged up. There's a lot of talk about Bucky Irving's workload getting even high. We're looking at these running backs off the board, Dave. Irving, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs, who maybe has a higher floor, lower ceiling. Any of these guys could finish in the top 5. Any of these guys.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I've said Josh Jacobs almost feels like an arbitrage Saquon Barkley. Like he gets the same usage. He's on a good offense, similar age and all that. But for whatever reason, Josh Jacobs is one of those guys that like nobody feels good about drafting. And like in my mind, when you start looking at projections, what he did last year, I don't know why he's not going at the end of the first round.
Right. Exactly. I mean, so and the interesting thing too about the running backs this year is they're close enough that you really need to take a stand. I mean, going into your first round, you're going to take a stand. Going into your second round, like who do you like? What situation do you like? What team do you believe in? What coaches do you believe in? Because they're pretty level and it's fun. I mean, it's what the challenge of fantasy football is supposed to be, not playing positional arbitrage. So, we'll see about these running backs, but I think that we may have to call an audible here as we see 11 running backs gone in the first 17 picks. Wow.
Kyron is still there. And I do understand like not wanting to double tack Rams, but also you figure, I don't think either my whole thought process when drafting, if I don't think a player is going to make it back to me with my next pick, I don't think it's a reach. I think people get so like just tethered to ADP that like, oh, this guy's 4 spots higher than where he should be, so I can't take him. And when I'm looking at this pick at the top of round 3, I don't think Omari and Hampton makes it back to us. I don't think Travion Henderson makes it back to us. So if we really want to go running back here, I don't think it's crazy to maybe force a little bit. But man, after what we saw from Travion Henderson, I don't even think that's a crazy pick to make it.
Not crazy. And I'm okay. Like I'm letting someone else take Hampton. I'm not. I mean, look, here's my thing with Hampton. Just a little bit. I was not that impressed with him. Honestly, I think that he's not that different than say like Caleb Johnson. And just on a little bit, I got to see him in the Hall of Fame game. He didn't really pop. He didn't really stand out. I think Kyron Williams is fine. I'm looking here too because we're talking about
James Cook also.
James Cook, I think the hold in, but he's falling a little farther. I'm looking at the Rams schedule also, Dave, and they've got week 15 Detroit, week 16 at Seattle, week 17 at Atlanta. That's not. I mean, that could be a runway. That could be something that could be pretty exciting.
Not crazy about Detroit, but those other two, that's a nice little fantasy schedule there. Well, Kyron Williams goes off the board. So here we are on the board. Breece Hall, James Cook, Omari Hampton, Kenneth Walker. Wide receivers would be Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Marvin Harrison. I like this is such a running back heavy draft that everybody kind of had the same idea as us going running back. It does kind of force us into looking at the wide receivers, I feel.
I mean, I really like Garrett Wilson going back to, being paired up with Justin Fields. The early reports out of practice were like, he's going to get 180, 200 targets. So, I think one of the things that I think people are forgetting about Garrett Wilson is that, yes, he was disappointing last year, but halfway through the season, Aaron Rodgers brought in like his caddy, like his number one guy, and then started favoring him. Right. So what did we expect? Now it's the Garrett Wilson show, and I think that you're going to see him at least approach like 110, 115 catches. Now, whether that's for 1,100 yards or 1,400 yards, we'll see what kind of offense they can put together, how Justin Fields can, if he can make some things happen. But I think you're going to have a ton of targets by design, a ton of targets where he's the first read. And then we saw Justin Fields feed DJ Moore to his career year.
1,400 yards to
Right.
DJ Moore. Right. Yeah. And
Right.
and that's kind of my, you can argue split hairs between the two, but I'd say right now, Garrett Wilson is a similar talent to what DJ Moore was 2 years ago at the prime of his
Right.
career.
Right.
And for all the things that we love about Justin Fields, one of his biggest issues is not getting through his projections. Well, that's pretty good for a wide receiver one if he's just going to force the ball to him. And we know Garrett Wilson can make plays after the catch, come down with contested catches. So I like that. Before we keep getting into this, we do have the chat is blowing up right here. So let's give some pleasantries to the chat. Jeff Bell, 5-time consecutive expoer. We got David Meyer in here saying, hi, Brian, saying, I have Puka, Collins, St. Brown, and Thomas all over Neighbors. That is a bold stance, but that's something, it does seem so tight in that like middle of round 1 to middle of round 2 that, like you said, you kind of just have to call your shot this year.
You got to take a stand. And look, I get it. Like, I think the bull case for Malik Neighbors is like we've been talking about with Garrett Wilson, 200 targets, 100. He could approach Lamb in terms of catches, 125, 130 catches. And now on the other side, we don't necessarily associate Russell Wilson with fantasy ceilings for receivers. We don't associate rookie quarterbacks Jackson Dart with that. But I also think we have to build in with Malik Neighbors that he can get even better. Some of these guys, he exceeded all expectations. He transcended his situation last year. Why can't he do it again? We're watching even more running backs. Hampton falling farther than I've seen him fall in a lot of drafts. And interesting that Breece Hall comes out in the first preseason game in a rotation, in basically a committee. He's leading the committee. And his ADP, this is just one draft sample size, but I thought maybe he would drop a little bit.
The Braylon Allen excitement, like you can't get excited about a player. And when I say you, I'm of course talking about the royal you, the entire fantasy community, when they get excited about one player that has to come off of somebody else. So now I think just because there's this consistent drumbeat for Braylon Allen, it doesn't mean that Breece Hall can't still be the big play pass catching machine that he was. But because Braylon Allen is starting to get some buzz now, we see Breece Hall starting to fall a little bit. We got Boss Man in the chat here, Sig, saying, let's go. Two of my favorite humans. Hey, Joe, thanks for tuning in. Chat is really buzzing today. We got our friend Daiquiri Man tuning in all the YouTube shows saying, wowee. Awesome. Jeff Bell. Hopefully you guys get a chance to meet next year.
Right. And I saw my man north of Vermont out there a little earlier, Henry Muto, who I've been seeing in our shows, chat rooms for years and years and years. An outstanding fantasy player. But the expo came up, and I love that so many people got to renew acquaintances or see Joe Bryant again and learn that he is exactly that guy. Like when you meet Joe, he's exactly what you have experienced of Joe. And that's one of the things that makes it so easy. I mean, it's so easy to want to work here for 20 years, Dave, is, we're real people, for better or for worse.
Yeah, that's the hope, is to be here another 20 years from now. And I feel like I knew Joe before I ever even talked to him, being a long time email subscriber, getting the email, reading every single day. And Joe puts a lot of his personality in there. And I got to say, just getting to know him personally over the last 5 years. Yeah, just as great of a guy as you would expect him to be, as are you, Sig, and Cecil, and Matt Waldman, and Jason Wood, and Bob Henry, the whole team. I mean, just an amazing staff here we have over Football Guys.
We just don't know how to be anybody but who we are. And that's, in this day and age, that's kind of brave, I guess. So we're watching these guys go off the board. I mean, I think that we will have running backs available. I know, I mean, I didn't see who went there at 4-1, but
is that cut off?
Who's there for
Kenneth Walker?
Oh, there's
Walker.
So,
went off the board.
We may see James Cook still be there. I'm fine with that.
Alvin Kamara.
And Alvin Kamara in a PPR. I think Henderson, we'll see how much he seems up. I would, if we're going to go with Henderson, I would wait and see if he swings through to the turn.
With the early fourth.
Just simply because I think that, there's the Cook hold, and I think Kamara is probably, it's funny whenever a team offense being inept actually couldn't be balance out at least for fantasy, because then you have
Right.
Alvin Kamara catching 75, 80, 85 balls, and you know that he's just going to keep gnashing his teeth and playing through injuries and grinding out everything he can for the Saints, even if this team is headed to like a 2-15 record, which they probably are. But so I think and George Kittle is still there. I still don't understand why George
Kittle has been such an easy pick at that turn.
I mean,
Oh
that's
my goodness.
to me, that's a layup, and we'll figure it out. We'll work around it. And we are seeing the wide receivers go off the board. That's kind of what we were hoping for after we went wide receiver. And I'm fine with Kittle. There goes. So at this point, I think it's Kittle, because we're looking at him getting him a round and a half after McBride and Bowers.
And then there's still a handful of running backs that we'll get with our next pick that I think we'll feel pretty good about.
Well, look, we are trying to win a big field contest here, okay? And I think you have to build in your weakness and then count on your ability on the waiver wire or otherwise your late round picks to hit on that weakness. And running back 2 has always been one of my favorite weaknesses to build in. Like we've got Genty, we're set at running back 1. We're going to with 2 strong wide receivers. We're probably going to flex a wide receiver. It's PPR. That's fine. And so let's see, because Dave. I mean, you said that I get the final call. So
you do.
And I'm looking at Jalen Hurts. So one of the things I think that is one of the easiest hacks in fantasy football this year is there's no way the Eagles' pass volume is going to be as low as it was last year. Everything broke. Everything broke right for them. And also Jalen Hurts, he had stretches of games without Devontae Smith, without AJ Brown. So you're not really seeing his true fantasy value if you look at his numbers last year. So I love the idea of pairing Hurts, because he 6-point pass touchdowns. He can be fine with 6-point pass touchdowns. Pairing him with Kittle. And now we have 2 wide receiver 1s. We have our running back 1. So we're building an upside at every position. We have the ability to exceed or at least hold serve with Genty. We just wanted to hold serve. If he can be a top 5 running back, but I think we can get Nakua in the top 5, even though we drafted him as like wide receiver 9. I think there goes Travion Henderson. So good call on him going earlier. I still think that remember they keep mentioning Josh McDaniels keeps mentioning Shane Vereen. Right. I mean, I love George Pickens. I mean, I'm not going to talk anybody out of taking George Pickens really early. I saw Jameson Williams go pretty early too. There's James Cook. So and again, we're not just trying to win this 12-team league. We're trying to build a team that is unique and that can rise above thousands of teams.
Exactly.
That's why we were looking at hoping for McCaffrey early, but Genty can give us that kind of boost. So I'm saying I'm thinking Jalen Hurts here.
Jalen Hurts, and remember, Alvin Kamara is still on the board as well.
Well, that's true. So we're good.
A while ago.
So we're good.
Whether it's Alvin Kamara, Jalen Hurts, I mean, we're getting one of those 2, and I'd feel great about either of those.
There goes
off the board. So Jalen Hurts, you have Hurts ahead of Daniels. Just wanted to make sure you saw that Daniels is still on the board too.
Yeah, I just think that with Daniels, there's always the potential sophomore slump, and I don't think he's as durable as Hurts, and I just think that you're going to see the pendulum swing back here. And then we're talking about AJ Brown, who was a 1st-round pick last year, falling to the mid-second. We're talking about Devontae Smith, who's even been taken yet. He was a 3rd-round pick last year. He's falling to the 4th, 5th round now. So I just think that there's a reaction. There goes Smith. There's a reaction here to the Eagles having I think there was a stat. I can't remember the exact stat, Dave. It was like they threw 53 passes trailing in the second half last year or something like that.
When you got Saquon Barkley, why would you throw in the second half? Right. They were just kicking every team's teeth in last year.
Yeah. So is that going to happen again? I mean, I think, we run the simulations, and some percentage of the time, they're going to come back to the pack. And I just like Jalen Hurts. And now I still think we're set up, Dave, when we come back, that if our favorite player on the board is a wide receiver or even 2 wide receivers, I'm fine with going wide receiver in the 6th, 7th. And
because you can always find that RB2.
And we can start getting jiggy with it, and even taking players like around early, like take Zach Charbonnet. Like, I mean, I can't take
Ray Davis
Walker right now. Ray Davis, exactly. Some of these arbitrage and running backs. So I even like taking some of these guys like Trey Benson. The tank
Mhm.
might get to E on Trey Benson. If I told you that James Conner was going to miss 5 games this year and he's been durable, now Trey Benson is an 8th, 7th, 8th round pick. So what this illustrates, and what's fun to talk this through, thank you, Dave, for inviting me here tonight, and we get to hang out with each other, is that you see how as you make each pick, it should focus you and make it so that you can start to say, like, okay, now we just want upside at running back 2. A safe running back 2, like a Jalen Warren, isn't as exciting as an upside running back 2, like a Zach Charbonnet. And
Yes.
we start to, it should make your choices easier the more information that you have about your team. And I like how this team is coming together.
And this is something that Alfredo Brown and I just talked about recently. So many people, when they submit their rankings, they aren't actually submitting rankings; they're submitting projections. So these guys you talk about, like a Jalen Warren, I also kind of lump Austin Eckler in there. They're guys that are almost assuredly, if they're healthy, going to give you like 6 to 8 points per week. But at the end of the day, that's not really what you want in fantasy football. You want the guy that could step in for a 2 to 5 week period and give you 15 points per week. So when you're drafting, you might see the Austin Ecklers and the Jalen Warrens ahead of some of the contingency guys. But with us not really having that strong RB2, I think when we get into those mid rounds, that's when we start really swinging for the fences. And right now, we don't have to worry about playing the QB game or the tight end game. When you pay up for George Kittle and Jalen Hurts, you've got those spots locked down. So here we can start taking chances on some of those mid-round running backs. This is a start that I like quite a bit. And I think right now, outside of quarterback and running back, or outside of quarterback and tight end, we can just take the best available running backs and wide
Yeah.
receivers these next few rounds and feel pretty good about them.
Yeah. I'm also okay with Tucker Craft is a guy that once you get to the 10th round, whether I have Kill or not, just because I think that he can emerge into that level. I have him in a tier with TJ Hawkinson. I think at quarterback, I'll still take in the 15th round, like Anthony Richardson. I'll still take if Dak Prescott falls too far, if Drake May falls too far. It's still not necessarily a bad idea if you see someone with top 5, top 7 upside of the position fall, snatch them up, because you're denying one of your competitors who did not spend early in a position and out. But it all depends on, like you said, the other running backs and wide receivers. So what are we looking at here? I saw that Chuba Hubbard went. I think James Conner still is interesting if he's out there.
James Conner's available. Tony Pollard, also
Tony
a guy
Pollard,
that you want to bump up a little bit with the Tyjae
right?
Spears. Like
So
that is a guy that you'd actually feel good about Tony Pollard as an RB2.
exactly.
Especially
Well,
early in the season, and it buys you time until you
dang.
could find that other guy.
Windows, as Cecil says,
Mhm.
windows, right? So you're absolutely right. I think Tyrone Tracy is another guy that qualifies. So
Isaiah
look,
Pacheco is also there.
so we're not worried about our running back too. We're not worried. I mean, here we are coming up on the 6th round. We've only taken one running back, and we're going to project Tony Pollard as a top 20 running back going in early in the season. We're going to project Tyrone Tracy as a top 25 running back early in the season. So, and then I think that James Conner's almost a layup here, because again, we're looking at early on. If we can get Trey Benson like in the 11th round, and the Cardinals, from all outward indications, Dave,
Well, there
there
goes
goes
James
Conner.
Conner right before us, but we still, as we mentioned, have Tony Pollard available.
Yeah.
Isaiah Pacheco, who I prefer a little bit over Tony Pollard, but really splitting hairs. I got him in the
So
same tier there. Or if you want to look at receiver, Chris
I'm gonna.
Olave, Ricky Pearsall.
So there's Olave for upside, and then I don't even mind double tapping wide receiver here. So I think you have Olave for upside, and Jacoby Myers for floor, but I think Jacoby Myers has a decent chance of being there at 7. So I like Olave here.
Yeah. Talk me through that a little bit, because today I talked with Matt Waldman. We talked about the Saints, and I said, you know what? The Saints might not be good. They might be a 2-15 team, but their defense is also bad. And whether it's Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shugg, these guys are both gunslingers. And that's what I want to see, is like Derek Carr was so safe with the ball last year that you just wanted to pull your hair out watching this team. At least with Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shugg, they're going to rip the ball downfield. And that's what we want to see for the wide receivers here.
Yeah, I think that what you're looking at is a couple of things. One, this team's going to be trailing a lot. And I like Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall would have been a fine pick too. You're looking at someone who could be, but I don't know if we would want to pair him up with George Kittle.
With Kittle, right?
Right. But so Olave absolutely is number one target on this team, and I wouldn't even mind taking Rashid Shaheed later. So the team's gonna be trailing in the second half, like you said. The quarterbacks are gonna be letting it all hang out. But Bob Harris pointed out, I did the couch with him last week, that generally these wide receivers are not brought down as much by their quarterbacks as we expect them to. That wide receivers can transcend, not always. We remember, I think, the ones that don't more than the ones that do. But you're looking at Chris Olave, and one of the things I really like to do, Dave, is look at the ADP in year N-1 and then look at the ADP this year. Chris Olave was a third-round pick last year with Derek Carr. And like you said, Derek Carr was sometimes a limiting factor for this offense because of how safe and disciplined he was with the ball. So and Olave had a couple of scary concussions, but should Olave really be falling 3 rounds farther, which is, that's like 1/4 of the value when like a third-round pick for 6th-round pick in auction values. And you're talking about a significant drop. And then we're building an upside. We're trying to build a unicorn here. So having Chris Olave, a potential wide receiver 1, as a wide receiver 3, absolutely. Interesting to see Matthew Golden steaming up the board now with Jaden. A lot of wide receiver injuries. So one of the things that's going to be interesting to balance out here are all these different wide receiver injuries, and then how it should be either getting you on some of the other guys, or maybe you take a value, a Khalil Shakir falling, a Jaden Reed, a Chris Godwin. But I think that people have it right with like Egbuka going ahead of Godwin now, and Golden going ahead of Reed. So like we talked about multiple times tonight, it's this ever-changing, ever-evolving. And what's exciting about this is you jump into a draft and you see where we are now, and you understand which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah, I like the way that this one is turning out so far, and I still, I've got a bunch of guys in the queue right now, names that you have been mentioning that I would be very happy with. Tyrone Tracy, still out there. See Aaron Jones go off the board before Tyrone Tracy. Isaiah Pacheco still out there as well. Jacoby Myers, who you mentioned. Stephon Diggs is a guy that I've been drafting pretty aggressively, getting pretty good news, and that is another upside pick for sure. I mean, if he returns to the player that he was, this guy was a top 7 wide receiver last year before Aaron is.
They're listening.
So they are. So Pacheco, Tracy, Jacoby Myers, Khalil Shakir.
I love Myers. I mean, I really think Jacoby Myers is like a middle class.
Remember, we spent our first pick on Ginty. So are you?
No, you know what? Then let's go with Tyrone Tracy. Let's go with Tyrone Tracy.
Talk to me about Tyrone Tracy, because this is one I love the pick. I mean, I am very bullish on Tyrone Tracy, but it does seem like everybody there was a line drawn in the sand about 4 months ago, and you were either on Team Tyrone Tracy or you were on Team Cam Scadaboo, and it seems like the beat coming out of New York is that Tracy is the favorite. Of course, Scadaboo is dealing with an injury right now, but do you think that might tighten up as the season progresses?
No.
Or I see these guys with very different skill sets where I think they can both be pretty productive.
Yeah, I think that, and by the way, Jeff Bolt's been asking in the chat room for us to run down our picks. So we took Ashton Jeanty as the 9th pick, Puka Nacua as the 16th pick.
Unbelievable value.
Yeah. Garrett Wilson is the 28th pick. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's too small for my old man eyes. But then we got George Kittle, and we got Jalen Hurts, and we got Chris Olave as our wide receiver 3, and then Tyrone Tracy as running back 2. So Tyrone Tracy. And again, Dave, like if the Giants hadn't taken Cam Scadaboo, Tyrone Tracy's a 4th-round pick, ascendant lead back, right? He's a converted wide receiver, so that he's got it going on in the passing game. He, before his fumbleitis at the end of the year, really looked like a guy that was arriving way earlier than advertised. We saw him as a guy that, like, hey, he's a converted wide receiver. If you squint, you can see like David Johnson. That's kind of what Tyrone Tracy was. And he was already starting to show some of those qualities at the end of his rookie year. And then Scadaboo's drafted, and Brian Dable's like smiling like a dad when they're talking about him after the draft. And Scadaboo's, he's a player that, at his best, he reminded me of that one great year that Peyton Hillis had. Or, he's a player. He doesn't have that much like phone booth quicks, doesn't have he's not that flexible, but he just finds a way. He's a good receiver. He's got great stamina. But the thing is, he's hurt, and it was an aggravation. All right. It was an aggravation of a hamstring. And the second injury is always worse than the first injury with these. This is why Jawan Jennings is like, like maybe somebody else can take Jawan Jennings right now instead of me. I'm looking at Ricky Pearsall. I'm looking at George Kittle in this passing game. So you have that. But then Jordan Rannan, who used to cover the Eagles, now covering the Giants at The Athletic, basically said that it was never really a competition anyway. This was never really a competition. I mean, Scadaboo had just gotten on the field with the first team in practice. Like, ooh, he's playing some with the first team now. And they
the first day that he got the team,
right.
that was when he injured himself, like day
Right.
one with the ones.
It wasn't like they were mixing them in with the first team in a committee approach. And they asked Dable about Tyrone Tracy, and he's like, he's faster, he's quicker, he's better than last year. And then he said, well, we'll see how the backfield shakes out. But unless we think that Brian Dable is just saying that to say that, I mean, a faster, quicker, more prepared Tyrone Tracy could be a breakout player. And I think that he was a 9th round pick with Scadaboo when they were seen as similar. And really, without Scadaboo in the picture, he should be more like a 5th or a 6th round pick. And with our build, getting him in the 7th round is just beautiful. And now we really, Dave, can just focus on taking the players with the highest ceiling. I mean,
exactly. And I mean, we've got our whole starting lineup filled out at this point, and that feels pretty good when you're able to do that early. It's not something that I try to force, but when it happens, it's a really nice spot to be in because then you don't have to force any picks. You can just kind of let the board come to you from here on out. If you want to indulge me real quickly, I can give you a very bullish take on Tyrone Tracy, like the best case scenario. Last year we saw Wan'Dale Robinson, right? Like the most inefficient high volume season we have ever seen before, 140 targets with a little production to be said for it. So I think that if Scadaboo comes on later in the year and they say, hey, this guy, we need to get him touches, Tyrone Tracy, a converted receiver, we already saw that Wan'Dale Robinson was playing more outside in this preseason game. I wonder if they might be thinking about pushing Tyrone Tracy into the slot a little bit, where he can do some work out of the backfield, some work out of the slot, especially in a PPR league, and really, really raising that ceiling. It's a narrow path to get there. I'm not saying it's assuredly going to happen, but I don't know what type of upside you're getting from other running backs coming in that range.
No, well, and the thing is, again, people underestimate the value of knowing a player can get off to a hot start. And with Scadaboo, whatever's going to happen in the second half of the year. But remember, Mike Tomlin, the moving train. I mean, the fact that Scadaboo's missing all of this time in practice may make it so whatever his ceiling was, his ability to dislodge Tracy at the top of this backfield, the chances are going down a little bit every day. And then Tracy can also be good enough to make it moot anyway. But I think that, Dave, everybody would be served in these redraft leagues thinking about sometimes like it's just a 4 or 6 week league. Like just draft for the first 4 or 6 weeks and really push players up or down based on their expected contributions in this first 4 or 6 weeks, because it's going to look entirely different come like mid-October. So just try to get off to a good start, 4-1 in your first 5 or something like that. And then you're going to use all your savvy, all of your lineup setting, waiver wire moves, etc. And now we can start to focus again on some really interesting upside guys. And it's good. Every quarterback pick, every tight end pick is good for us at this point. That's another fun thing about our build.
Right. Yeah. We can wait to get a QB2 or a tight end 2, or we don't even need to at this point. I mean, if we want to, of course we can, but there's no reason to force it. This isn't a best ball tournament. This is a managed league where we can make waiver moves throughout the season. So if we walk out of here without a QB2 or without a tight end 2, it's only a matter of time before one pops up on the waivers that we can go after. TJ Hawkinson going off the board much later than we typically see. He's usually going before Mark Andrews. But again, preseason, we get a little taste of football. TJ Hawkinson's out there, doesn't pull a single target, and now we are panicking about TJ Hawkinson. I think that, if he's fallen to this point where you can get him in the middle of the 8th round, I think that's a great value if that's kind of where he settles in. Looking at our next picks, though, looking at the running backs and wide receivers that are available, we can talk through some of these players that I'm looking at. Khalil Shakir, Travis Etienne, Michael Pittman, Zach Charbonnet, Jordan Mason are all guys that jump out to me. Darnell Mooney dealing with the injury right now, but a guy that, you assume after the first couple of weeks is going to be a good weekly player. Keon Coleman, Brandon Ayuk, that's one where I'm interested to see. We just got the news today There was some hope that he might be ready week 1. I wasn't buying into it. Now we're hearing from the coach's mouth week 6, which could mean week 8 or maybe we don't know, but not getting the warm and fuzzies about that one for sure. Joe Mixon's still available as well, a big faller since that foot injury popped up.
Yeah.
We are on the board now, but Khalil Shakir, Michael Pittman, Zach Charbonnet, Jordan Mason, any of the other names I threw out there?
I still like Shakir.
Same.
And I like Jordan Mason.
Go.
But I like Shakir because we might not even need to use him until we see him for a couple of weeks, make sure that ankle is okay. And having him as our flex in a PPR, I'll go ahead and take that. And, for lucky, Mason can fall through. And I'm even okay with Charbonnet at this point. And in fact, with our build, Mason may be like the David Montgomery of Minnesota this year, and that's fine. But Charbonnet is the guy that, hey, Kenneth Walker, when they're talking about like we have a plan to make sure he's ready for week 1.
Yeah. Don't feel great about that this far out from the season. If they're saying that like 2-3 days before the season, okay, it is what it is. But when we're this far out and we're talking about like a plan for week 1, and I will say like my take has changed dramatically based on that news, because all we've heard since Clint Kubiak showed up in Seattle is him just gushing about Kenneth Walker. But I was still drafting a lot of Zach Charbonnet because Kenneth Walker has never played 17 games. Like he's just, you can just count on him to miss a handful of games. And if that does come early in the season, week 1, week 2, week 3, I mean, that definitely benefits us if we do end up with Zach Charbonnet here. Jordan Mason's still on the board as well. Michael Pittman is one of those guys that I did not expect to be in on, but is just so cheap in drafts this year that I just can't stop drafting him. 10th most targets over the last 2 years.
Right.
And he did that while dealing with a back injury that was like clearly inhibiting his play last year. And one of those guys that like I said, didn't plan to draft a lot. And now I'm through, about 150 drafts. And somehow I have Michael Pittman on like 60 of my teams this year. Like just too hard to pass on.
It's the Colts. It's just so ridiculous because they have so much talent. And we know, Anthony Richardson is improving incrementally, but there's just no way he can unlock the value. You're going to have at most one consistent fantasy option in this passing game. I don't even think you're gonna have 2 consistent options in this passing game. Okay. And then because you're gonna have low volume and probably low accuracy, and a high A dot. And then there's, it's so hard because if Michael Pittman was on a different team, Dave, we'd be drafting him in the 3rd or 4th round.
He's a wide receiver 1.
Right. If Josh Downs was on a different team, if Adonai Mitchell has been the talk of Colts training camp. But who are they going to want to force the ball to? And correctly in this draft, who should be the first Colts patch catcher off the board? Tyler Warren. That's who they want to feature. They want to feature Tyler Warren. So, I love the assemblage of even Alec Pierce, who looks like his groin injury is going to be a minor thing. And he's the one who has that deep ball connection with Richardson already. So, he's got best ball appeal. But week to week, Dave, I just think this is going to be a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. But I believe in the talent. So there are certain players. I have something I call the all Rolaids team, or I don't know what you call it. But there are players they're not players I'm avoiding. They're not players I'm targeting. They're players I just hope someone else takes. Because I don't want to have to agonize about them. Right? I don't want to have to see but this, Michael Pittman, his situation's terrible. But his talent is known. And, again, I think Charbonnet is the pick here. I think Charbonnet.
I'm completely with you. Yeah, I think Charbonnet makes way too much sense right now. And I honestly expected, because his ADP on this website, he was the second player available on the board right now.
Oh, wow.
His ADP was 102, or I'm sorry, second running back available. So an ADP of 102. And I figured, it's not like he was super buried and somebody had to scroll down to find. I thought with the Kenneth Walker news coming out today that we would assuredly see Zach Charbonnet go a little bit higher. So I love that, because we know that if Walker has to miss any time, you're getting 20 plus points per game from Charbonnet.
Right. That's the thing. And I know that it's based on PPR and some other things, but when they were starting, Charbonnet outscored Walker last year. But if you put the two of them together, you got a running back 1. You got a strong running back 1. You got basically like a late first, early second round pick. And you can pair them up in like the 4th and 9th round this year. But I agree with you, Dave. I'm surprised. I guess because Kenneth Walker is just, the energy he plays with, his aura as a running back. Like you
Yeah.
you want to believe that he's going to have that 1,600 or 1,700 yard season one of these years. But a year that he's already nursing a foot injury is not going to be that year. It's not, Dr. Gene, I've already mentioned one thing I learned from Dr. Gene. The second injury is always worse than the first whenever there's an aggravation. Another thing that I learned just from listening and doing shows with him for so many years is that these guys are as healthy as they're going to be at the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So if the injury seal is already broken, if there's already some sort of issue that they're managing right now, that's a bad sign. I mean, if you're looking for like a career year, if you're looking for like everything to come together for a player, it rarely is going to happen in a year that they're hurt in training camp.
And last year I had this. It was one of the worst years I had because I had this idea that I was like, you know what, I'm just going to ignore injury news. I'm going to put faith in modern medicine, and I think these guys are going to bounce back. I drafted a lot of Cooper Kupp in the early rounds. I drafted a lot of Mark Andrews last year, and those ended up not working out too well. So this year, I'm paying a lot more attention to the injuries. Gene is obviously a great resource. Adam Hutchison, talk about him on shows all the time.
He's
Another great
outstanding.
resource. And I got to say too, with us taking Khalil Shakir here, I think he's another one of those players that is falling a little bit because of the high ankle sprain. But Adam's done studies on this before. High ankle sprain, scary word. You don't want to hear that ever, but that is much more impactful on running backs. That wide receivers, when they suffer high ankle sprains, they return to play, and usually after one game, they shake the rust off, and then they're back to who they were beforehand. It doesn't linger the way it does with a running back. So that's why I have had a lot of confidence still going after Khalil Shakir in these drafts. But let's go ahead and run through this for anybody who missed the last couple of picks. Started off with Ashton Jinty and then Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson, George Kittle in round 4, and Jalen Hurts in round 5, Chris Olave, Tyrone Tracy, Khalil Shakir, and Zach Charbonnet. And this is the point in the draft where things start cooking a little bit. I think people are putting a lot of thought into their early picks, and then they start kind of moving through these next ones a little bit quicker. Still don't really have any position of need at this point,
No.
Sig. Like, we are sitting pretty right now. We can kind of pick wherever we want. So let's start looking as we're coming up to this next pick. Tucker Kraft is available.
Yeah.
And he's somebody that I will put in there. I have him in the same tier as another guy who's still available too, really buried on the NFFC for whatever reason, Colson Loveland. But I have Tyler Warren, Tucker Kraft, and Colson Loveland all lumped together in a tier as guys that you can get in the middle rounds that I don't think I'm being hyperbolic when I say that they could be top 3 tight ends this year. I mean, guys that are going to be integral parts of their offense. We obviously like what Matthew Golden's doing, but Tucker Kraft, his athleticism, what he does after the catch, and then the out that he could be their tush-push quarterback. They don't want Jordan Love running that, and we saw Tucker Kraft doing it last year.
Yeah, and Tucker Kraft is set up for the breakout. I mean, that's the thing.
Right.
Let's hope that I'm going to do the sing the song of praise, the ode to Tucker Kraft, because last year he tore his pec, I think, weightlifting the offseason. And I thought, maybe Luke Musgrave is going to get more looks. All Tucker Kraft did last year show that he's probably the best tight end after the catch in the NFL right now. You have them talking all offseason about featuring him more. He only needs to get to 90 or 95 targets to get closer to George Kittle land. Okay. These guys don't need a ton of targets. They don't need 100 catches to be a top 5 fantasy tight end. But the Jaden Reed news could be a boost for him as much as it could be a boost for Golden. Third year breakout. I mean, I think Tucker Kraft is the closest thing I have as an answer to who's the guy you're going to get in every single draft. And there goes Rashid Shaheed, who would have been one of my other considerations here. So I think I think
Kraft.
I think the answer here is Tucker Kraft, and we can flex him. We can flex him. We know that George Kittle, the thing about these guys like Kraft and Kittle is they play like Vikings. I mean, them not Minnesota Vikings, but they play like Marauders. And, that can be, then Trey Benson certainly would have been a guy we would have considered as an upside running back coming back here on the turn. But, I think that, when we get to this part of the draft, Dave, like we talked about, I don't think we need to take an upside quarterback yet, but there are so many upside quarterback twos, guys like Trevor Lawrence.
That's who I wanted with the next pick, Keenan Allen.
Yeah,
and 11.
That's really good to see that he's getting recognized. Go ahead.
I was just gonna, his ADP hasn't moved much yet, but he's going well ahead of ADP. And just when I look at how ADP is shaking out, I tweeted it out this morning, but we're looking at Devontae Adams and Mike Evans going in round 4, Stephon Diggs in round 7. I think that's kind of the floor for where Keenan Allen should be going. Round 7, maybe round 8. But the fact that he's consistently fallen in round 11, 12, this is a guy who just had 1,200 yards with Justin Herbert 2 years ago in this offense.
Right.
11th in the league in target share last year. He's not a guy who needs elite athleticism to be good. He is just a technician. He is a ball magnet. I think that's one of the best values out there right now.
Yeah, I think that as a flex, a wide receiver 3 flex
Yeah,
PPR option, you can get him pretty cheap right now, and they gave him 8.2 million, so they still think he's got game left. What I'm really surprised at, Dave, is that we haven't seen a corresponding drop in Lad McConkey's ADP
right.
because
I didn't see
McConkey
where he'd
doesn't.
go in this one.
He went like
Yeah, end of round
late.
2. Yeah.
So McConkey did his best work out of the slot last year, and there's just no
Mhm.
way that Keenan Allen. I mean, he's going to play most of his snaps and get most of his target. Now, that McConkey's good enough that he may surprise us as an outside target, but I think that the best case scenario for him went by the wayside whenever they signed Keenan Allen. But even though Rashawn Slater went down, you can start to going back to the conversation about quarterbacks. Justin Herbert, he was playing hurt all last year. They're talking about
Right.
running more. He
Another
could,
preseason injury. Like
yeah,
week 1, his ankle was taped
right,
up.
and he had plantar fasciitis going into the season,
Mhm.
so he was never really healthy last year. And they're talking about him as a quarterback that they think can do so much more this year. And then there's a ton of wide receivers, and it's going to be interesting to see. I guess ETN's back ahead of Bigsby because of how the preseason game went, and here we are, we're back. So look, there's a ton of wide receivers that I like. It does seem like we're seeing some of the upside quarterbacks go off the board if we want to take an upside quarterback. Backup running backs. It's hard for me.
Najee Harris, do you think this is the you're getting
It's
scared
just
off by that
so
one? I get it.
I
Javonte
just
Williams getting some good buzz out of
no,
Dallas right now.
I want no Cowboys running backs. I mean, it's tough to find a running back that I would really be excited about taking right now as I look
So let me
down.
read off the wide
Good.
receivers. We got Marvin Mims, Hollywood Brown, Wandale Robinson, Jalen McMillan, Cedric Tillman,
Yeah.
Quentin Johnson, Xavier Legette, Romeo Dubs, Demario Douglas.
I think that it's Mims as he got the full wide receiver
Yeah,
2 treatment. We saw. I mean, we're just thinking
finally,
upside. We're just
finally.
thinking. We're just thinking best case scenarios. First
Mhm.
game of the year against Tennessee, so we're waiting for Khalil Shakir to come back. So we're plugging in maybe Mims as our flex week 1. I like that upside swing, and
And
then
that's why we just got below ADP, which is weird. Typically, we see people so reactive to preseason games,
right.
but yeah, I was shocked. Marvin Mims did not think that on Monday, after we finally see him in a full time role, getting him below ADP, that was a shock.
Yeah, it was very, very surprising to me. There's a lot of wide receivers that I like now as we get to this part of the draft that I think that are just like low hanging fruit, right? I'll name off some guys. Demario Douglas.
Demario Douglas is a guy I have in over 50% of my drafts.
There
Like
goes
just
another one,
such
Jalen
an easy one.
McMillan. Yeah, he's
Yep.
so.
Yep.
I mean, Demario Douglas. Every report has been so positive about him. He's got the slot receiver role in Josh McDaniel's offense. I won't be surprised if he's like 80 or 90% of Stephon Diggs. And that's
Right.
another thing that I find myself at this time of year, like when we get into draft season, Dave, is I'm like, well, why am I taking this wide receiver earlier when actually like the other wide receiver later on the same team? And
Hmm.
as we've been going through the draft, we're like, well, we already took this player from this team, so kind of precludes taking another player. So that's one of the things you always want to think about when sometimes you're not really sure. Like, I don't want to take DJ Moore because I'm going to take Roma Dunze in the next round. So that helps clarify things for you to go through drafts, understanding even within a team who you like better.
So I was doing the why take DJ Moore when I can get Roma Dunze and Luther Burden, but I do the training camp reports for football guys. And I think I finally kind of changed my tune on that. It's one of those things like you always hear about the buzzy names, the rookies, the new free agents. Those are the guys that are always making headlines. And there hasn't been anything on DJ Moore this year outside of there was that one story about him taking some snaps out of the backfield. And then this week, there was a report that came out that just said DJ Moore is doing wide receiver 1 things. He's playing inside, he's playing outside, he's playing out of the backfield. And more than anything, is he's getting involved as an inside blocker a la Amon-Ra St. Brown. And that's what made him so valuable. And that's why they played him inside in the slot so much. So I kind of had to have this like step back moment where I'm like, I haven't been drafting DJ Moore all year. And the reality is, we obviously get excited about the young guys, but DJ Moore could be like a supercharged Amon-Ra St. Brown in this offense. And that's just something that for whatever reason, all offseason just hadn't clicked. I thought so bad about Roma Dunze in that role and Luther Burden in that role that I hadn't even thought about the idea of DJ Moore being that guy. And it sounds like it might actually be him.
Yeah, it could be. That offense is a riddle. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
think,
And
and
that's why I don't like paying up in it.
well, and then
Right.
what we see in September may not be what's actually actionable
Mhm.
because from all outward indications, Ben Johnson, I think this is one of my like taglines this year is that what Ben Johnson, the offensive whiz, what's his secret sauce? He's a hard ass. He rides them.
He is.
He's
Yeah.
detail oriented. That's his
Mhm.
secret sauce, right? Is
Accountability.
precision and accountability, right? Do it exactly right, or we're going to keep doing it. And that tells me that September is going to be Will Shipley. That was going to be my next pick for us. Looking
This
at
was a
upside
round
running back.
20 pick a few weeks ago, and now he
Right.
is getting so steamed up. Yeah, that's a tough one to see go off the board.
Well, and
Keep going, Ben Johnson. Yeah.
it makes sense. I got another one on my sleeve. Don't worry. It makes sense. Look, we're at the point in the draft now where you just take your guys. You don't worry about
Yeah.
ADP, especially in a
100%.
high stakes contest. Where I see Saquon Barkley often not going off the board as running back 1 or even running back 2, which I get it. I mean, you can make a case for Jahmyr Gibbs. This is the cover of our magazine. By the way, we have a few Football Guys magazines left. Could check it out if you want to get one. I can't wait for mine to get in the mail. It was like I always think of the Jerk and the phone books. I am somebody. I'm in the Football Guys magazine. But this is one of those situations where. So Saquon Barkley, I get it, 480 some touches. He's a unicorn. His situation's a unicorn, but man, that's a lot of touches for a running back to have in a season. And it's reasonable to think, well, he may break down at some point this year. But
Right.
but I wasn't seeing Will Shipley move up in the same corresponding way. But I think now it's starting to happen. And
because I think there was a concern, like maybe it's AJ Dillon, but it sounded very clear that it is Will Shipley, not AJ Dillon, that would take over.
And AJ Dillon may get goal line touchdowns or something like that if it's not Jalen Hurts. But Will Shipley also is going to start the season in like a Kenneth Gainwell plus role because Gainwell's in Pittsburgh now. And Gainwell, that's another reason why I'm like, I'm an erotic Steelers fan. So, do I really want Warren? Do I really want Caleb Johnson when is underwhelming offense and Kenneth Gainwell? So the other guy I have up my sleeve is where, I think it's time for us to get another upside. Well, we could go to Mario Douglas here. I guess, I don't know, is NFFC ADP dictate that Demario Douglas is about to go?
His ADP is 180, but he's a guy that I typically see going well above ADP. So with our next two picks, 142 and 147, we'd be hoping that he'd make back to us at 166.
I'm okay.
The chance of that happening about 0. I'm okay just pulling the trigger on Demario Douglas.
I'm okay.
Yeah, he's a guy that I've been aggressively reaching for. Actually, I can look at my rankings, how they stack up against the consensus. I was just there goes Demario Douglas. So Team 7 might be watching this stream right now. I'll say I threw out Najee Harris with our last two picks. He is still available. As is Quentin Johnson. Yeah,
I'm okay with Najee Harris. I can pass back to you, but I will. Here's the running back that I'm looking at because I just think with Najee Harris, unless O'Marion Hampton gets hurt, which is possible,
right?
We're not really interested in Najee Harris. I'll tell you who I'm interested in: Jacory Crosky-Merritt.
All right. Do you think this? Let me see where he's at because his ADP is very, very 247.
Well, okay, so we can wait.
Probably run a risk.
We can wait. So other wide receivers. Joshua Palmer is interesting. As you can tell me who's coming up on the NFFC ADP that's like at the top of the board. So
coming up at ADP would be Quentin Johnson, Romeo Doubs, Adam Thielen, Jack Besh, and then Joshua Palmer. So I like Joshua Palmer there. Running backs would be Najee Harris, Isaac Guerrero, Rashad White, Rico Dowdle. I like Josh Palmer here quite a bit.
Yeah, and of the running backs you mentioned, I would say Dowdle. So I like Palmer here as a guy that has really taken to the Bills' offense right away. He can play both outside spots. He can beat man coverage. He can win balls the way that Gabe Davis used to win balls for Josh Allen. He can win balls on extended plays, and I think you're going to see him again, maybe with Shakir and Palmer, one of them gets hot at different times, or if one of them is hurt, like we're trying to get Josh Allen's number one target. And that is Khalil Shakir, but it might not be Khalil Shakir to open the season. Keon Coleman's still inconsistent. Sounds like Elijah Moore's been a little underwhelming. We just saw
Jeff Bell, who pays close attention to the Bills beat. He says Elijah Moore's kind of a nothing. One of those guys that we get excited about, buzzy name, second round player, great per route run metrics his rookie season. But I'd say he's closer to the roster bubble than he is to being somebody that we can rely on in fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. And I see Garrison in the chat room saying Sean Tucker too. By the way, Rashad White still being out there is interesting.
Day to day. It doesn't sound like it's anything serious.
Right.
I mean, I'd be happy taking Rashad White here. This is one of those.
Sure.
His ADP, but I mean, we got a lot of guys in the queue right now. Rico Dowdle, Quentin Johnson, Blake Corum, Rashad White. There's a lot of good options here.
Yeah, I like White. I like Dowdle. I mean, at this point in the draft, we're just saying, okay, there needs to be an injury. Okay, that's fine. I mean, if Chuba Hubbard goes down, and also we like Carolina to be one of the more improved offenses this year. So Jeff Bolt's asking about Sione Vaki. He's got a hamstring. He's been out for most of the summer. I think this was the year they wanted him to show that he could be the guy as the backup to both Gibbs and Montgomery. But it's hard for him to show that. You can't make the club in the double. He's not going to get cut. But I do think
Craig Reynolds back, I believe, too.
Yeah,
right?
and Reynolds he's serviceable. I mean, Netflix Reynolds is serviceable. I think you're going to see him go into the season as the number 3 running back. And with Vaki, we may be waiting until next year, and maybe we'll see what the situation is. There goes Najee Harris. So look, we could also take a backup quarterback here. It looks like the quarterbacks are
there's now a lot of good quarterbacks.
There's a lot left.
I mean, we still got Caleb Williams, Justin Fields, Brock Purdy. So I mean,
if we want
to go with the Justin Fields,
we can wait. We got Jalen Hurts.
We'll stack there with Garrett Wilson, or we can go with Brock Purdy and stack him with George Kittle. I mean, two decent options to have if we're looking for that back.
No, I hear you.
Dowdle or Rashad White?
I think it's. I mean, I like the Tampa. Just make the call. You make the call. They're both good picks here.
Rashad White is the guy that I'd prefer. I haven't drafted.
Okay, White. Go with White. Go with White.
But I haven't drafted any Rico Dowdle yet, so this gives me a chance to get a little bit different. And I will say I liked his usage in that preseason game. I'm with Rico Dowdle here.
Yeah,
I had kind of had this mindset, and Jeff Bell, we just talked about this last week, where he told me to kind of take a step back and look at my priors a little bit, because I just had this idea that Dave Canales wanted a workhorse running back. And Jeff kind of pointed to the fact that he has tried mixing in some other running backs, that Miles Sanders was early last year, that when Jonathan Brooks came back, they got him some touches, that he kind of leaned on Chuba Hubbard last year out of necessity. And he thinks that it'll be more of a split backfield where Rico Dowdle would be the one that would profile for a lot of the passing down work.
And I think what we're learning is that Dave Canales likes Rico Dowdle more than we realized.
Right.
That he's not a mere backup. He's not just, Jonathan Brooks isn't going to play this year, so we need to bring in somebody else that has experience and is credible. And I liked Chuba Hubbard in the late 4th, early 5th a lot, say a month ago. But learning what I've learned about Rico Dowdle, I have Chuba Hubbard closer down to like that James Conner tier, and not as excited to get him. I had him closer to James Cook. I had him closer to those guys that were going in the 4th round. So I think that, Rico Dowdle is a player that we shouldn't underestimate. And at this point with running backs, we're just looking at upside cases.
Right.
A lot of players that you just want to say, in the best case scenario, I don't want to know what the odds are, Helen Solo. Don't tell me the odds. I just want to know that if it hits, how much can it hit? How can it change our season? And if Chuba Hubbard goes down, Rico Dowdle can change your season.
So earlier in the show, I can't find the comment now. It was very much so at the beginning, but somebody asked about Kendre Miller. And as we're talking about these kind of injury away, these backup running backs, it sounds like he has secured the RB2 spot. Is that what you're hearing, Sig? I know you're probably pretty close to the Saints beat.
It's so hard to tell because, you'll hear that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to make the team.
Cam Akers is there too, I believe.
Cam Akers, who every time Cam Akers is on the field, he looks serviceable. He looks like a serviceable NFL running back. But again, I would just say this is more like kind of like Cleveland. Like, does it really matter? If Alvin Kamara goes down, is as opposed to like Rico Dowdle at the wheel of the Carolina offense, or if Bucky Irving goes down, like what would Rashad White be worth? Or some of the other guys we're talked about. So I mean, one of the things I want to try to put this in an article. I never have enough time to put everything I want to put into articles, Dave. But I really think navigating the backup running backs, and we already have some information like who's hurt, including among the backup running backs. But you're always looking at, you're looking at the quality of the situation. You're looking at the quality of the player. You're looking at whether there's clarity of who the backup is. Is there a clear backup, or is it a committee behind the starter? And then what's the likelihood that the starter's going to go down or lose their job or get demoted? So you can kind of look at those 4 different factors and then start to sort out what is just a big cluster of running backs in the second half of your draft. And the easiest way to distill all of those 4 down into one is just ask yourself, if this guy became the backup running back, how excited would we be? If this guy became the starter because of injury, and with a Saints back, I can't get excited about. And there's just no K. There goes.
I'm sorry for talking.
No.
I thought we'd make it with our next pick.
It's fine. It's fine. I mean, the important thing is we're serving our audience, and people need to know. Number one, like I said, like you said, Dave, 11th, 12th round of these high stakes contests or best ball drafts, period. Because there's big best ball contests too. Get your guy.
Right.
Go get
And
your
this is
guy.
the same guy. Team manager one is the same one that reached pretty aggressively for Will Shipley. So you talk about it, like the injury away guys, like, are they going to land in a good environment? I think this guy, where a lot of people are playing the ADP game to some extent, he isn't. And he's saying Will Shipley, if Saquon Barkley goes down, is going to be a league winner. And Jacory
Right.
Krosky-Barrett, if Brian Robinson goes down, or if he just steals the job on his own,
Right.
he's going to be a league winner. So this guy isn't playing the games of saying, let's wait and see. He's just going out and getting who I think are some of the most undervalued injury away guys out there.
Absolutely.
There's one more guy that's available, and again, a little bit buried in ADP, but since we're not playing the ADP game, Blake Corum kind of proved himself to be the clear RB2. I think that would be a great pick with our next one.
Yeah, I think that's fine because like can Kyren Williams
but also
really
Rachaad White is still available.
Yeah, maybe we'll get Rachaad White here as people a little worried about that groin injury. I'd rather have Rachaad White than Marshawn Lloyd.
Right.
So yeah, and with Krosky Merritt, you do this for long enough, and you start to the drumbeat, as Cecil coined that term, when there's multiple beat writers, they're all saying, by the way, this was a really impressive day. There goes Rachaad White for Jacory Krosky Merritt. Sometimes that's the precursor. It doesn't always result in the breakout, but when we look back for the signs, those were the signs. And I think that we could look at someone like Puka Nacua as a good example that the signs were there. So is Justin Herbert gone yet? I don't think Justin Herbert is gone yet, right?
He's been one of my favorite picks. A little bit concerned. Yeah, he's still atop the queue. So Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix, Matthew Stafford, Bryce Young, Tua Tagovailoa, Cam Ward, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, and Anthony Richardson. I mean, that's why I struggle so hard to pay up for QB2 this year, because it seems like you could just keep waiting and waiting and waiting and still get an Anthony Richardson or Geno Smith that could be a QB1.
That's fair. Although with I think that I'm okay with separating Herbert out, and I like Geno
Absolutely,
Smith.
Yeah.
Well, here's why I'm willing to separate Herbert out. It was like 2-3 years ago we were drafting him as quarterback 5 or 6. We saw him
top 5 pick in Dynasty
as someone that was on the cusp, and then the Chargers changed over the whole organization, and he was hurt last year. But I think Herbert as a backup quarterback. This is a 20-round draft. And the waiver is going to be somewhat thin. I'm okay with taking Justin Herbert here, and then our quarterbacks have the same initials. And that's.
Would you rather go Blake Corum or Justin Herbert?
Oh, I mean, I suppose we can get Blake Corum as a high upside backup running back because that fits our team ethos. And
let's take a look at the board here.
And there's
team 11.
Yeah,
we have to worry about team 11. He's already got one quarterback.
Let's take Corum. Let's go with Corum. Thank you. Yeah, because I mean, if we miss out on Justin Herbert, that's not really going to change things. We do expect Jalen Hurts to stay healthy, and like you said, it's more of a injury hedge. Where with Blake Corum, if Kyren Williams goes down, we might be really wishing we had gotten Blake Corum, and we've been missing. We missed on Shipley, we missed on Krosky Merritt. So and Rachaad White almost made it back to us, but not quite. So I like
Blake Corum, if that was in the most Kyren Williams stat line I'd ever seen in that preseason game, 9 carries, 32 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean that's very Kyren Williams-esque. So we'd think that if that happens, I know there's a lot of buzz about Jarquez Hunter, but it seems like Blake Corum would be the guy if Kyren Williams has to miss any time. So Justin Herbert's sitting atop the queue right now. We can look at some other wide receivers here as well. Jack Bash, Alec Pierce, DeAndre Hopkins, Jalen Knoll, Michael Wilson, Amari Cooper, Andre Yosavash, Jalen Coker, a guy who
I like Coker.
I kind of thought he was on the roster bubble based on some of the early camp news, but he is just pulling himself away. Yeah.
And I think this could be one of those situations where, of course, Xavier Legette is the player that the Panthers want to seize that wide receiver 2 role. He's the player that they invested a lot more in. But eventually, Dave, we see these things flip. And sometimes just over a week. Like there'll just be 1 week during the regular season that Jalen Coker makes some plays downfield. And the next thing
what are we doing with Adam Thielen out
here? Right. And so I think Coker's a good pick. I love it. Andre Yoshavas as a pick here. And I like Jermaine Burton as a late pick too, because again, we're talking about late. We're talking about upside, right? What's the best case scenario here? Kyle Monangai, by the way, is another guy that we might be looking at here as an upside running back. So, and this, by the way, how do you know you prepared well for your draft? At every round, there's multiple players you want to take. You're like, I want to take them all. So I'm not interested in Quinshon Judkins, not interested in any Browns running back for the same reason we talked about with the Saints running backs. But I think that
Taj Brooks is a good one. That was a guy that I was hoping we'd get with one of the later picks, but not going to happen in this sharp room.
Well, and he has the quality of the offense. He seems like he's the clear backup. DJ Giddens, that one's not bad either. So I think this is when with these running backs go off the board, that's 7 in a row. Let's make it 8 in a row with Monangai.
I like it. All right, so Ahead of Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I think. I mean, backup running back. I'm not scared. I mean, backup quarterback,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But and mainly,
That guy looked good. He looked really good in that game yesterday. I was happy with what I saw. DeAndre Swift and Roshan Johnson both got the day off. We didn't really see the ones out there. This is one that I am struggling to get a read on because you've got the media is saying one thing. The media is steadfast in the belief that Roshan Johnson is the number 2. ESPN's Courtney Cronin just came out and said it a few days ago. A lot of the Bears beat reporters are saying that him being the veteran kind of has the inside track. I know you follow Coach Speak Index. They do great work out there. And they said that Ben Johnson hasn't said Roshan Johnson's name once this entire offseason. They've been tracking it, just dying for some information. And he, Declan Doyle, Eric Bieniemy, they're all raving about Kyle Monangai, and it has just been radio silent from the coaching staff on Roshan Johnson. So I don't know what to make on this one. I'll sprinkle in some Roshan Johnson, but Kyle Monangai, our friend Anthony Amico, just pointed this out on Twitter a couple days ago. You look at his size, his athletic measurables, what he did at the combine, all that stuff. He is darn close to a carbon copy of Jamal Williams. Maybe runs a little bit harder, but very, very similar.
He is. And look, Coach Speak is important. I'm glad you mentioned Greg Branos and Coach Speak Index, because so many of the most important things that happened last year in fantasy football, we had the precursors. Liam Cohen said about Bucky Irving right after the draft, this guy runs the ball the way we want our running backs to run the ball.
Yep.
With Kyle Monangai, I think it was Ben Johnson who said this. Don't quote me on that. I've got old man brain. But the coach quote from the Bears was, he's looking like a player we're going to be able to trust this year.
Said we could lean on him late in the fall is what he said. And I like that. That piques my interest.
That's what we want with rookie running backs. This is the trust factor, because there's so many times that they're rookie running backs that we can see they've got the juice, but they haven't given the coach the warm fuzzies yet by being assignment sound. And Monangai is like you said with Jamal Williams. I mean, he's the assignment sound running back. Right. He's the running back. And think about Ben Johnson. Think about what's going to appeal to Ben Johnson. He's the guy that's going to run the play the way it's supposed to be run. And we're not sure yet. And correct me if I'm wrong, because you're doing the training camp reports. Is it even clear yet whether the Bears are leaning more like gap or zone in their running game this year?
They haven't really talked about that too much. Right now, they are just unloading everything. Like they are just
exactly
what the team does best. A lot of drinking out of a fire hose, where they're doing run, or they're doing zone and gap and man. They're doing a little bit of everything, trying to see what works.
And that's Ben Johnson, right? Because one of the things that was so exciting watching the Lions, if you're like a football geek, is that you would see them run 5 running plays consecutively with 5 different concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And Monangai is a guy that I think can stay on the field, where I would say Roshan Johnson's more of a better gap runner. Right. Where Monangai, I think
Swift is much better getting gap as well.
So, and there goes Yoshibis. I like Yoshibis as a pick because, again, if T. Higgins goes down, and Higgins missed 5 games last year, all right, if T. Higgins goes down, you're looking at Yoshibis, who everybody's talking about how much better he looks this year. Mm-hmm. How he's coming to his own. Remember, this is a guy that came in kind of like Isaac Tesla with all the size, speed, athleticism you want, but I think he played at Princeton or something like that. So he needed some time to ramp up. So I'm just thinking upside here, Dave. I mean, for these, as we fill out these picks, I'm just thinking we want the highest ceiling players left. And really, I think that we've set ourselves up well so that we don't have to really worry about anything with the depth we have, and we've already stacked up some good upside picks on the bench.
Yeah, especially those last 3: Rico Dowdle, Blake Corum, Kyle Monangai. They're not guys that were plugged into our week 1 lineup, but we don't need to. We're already set with the other 3 guys. We've got 2 running backs and a flex. We've got the receiver depth as well. So these are guys that we're just stashing on the bench and hoping that things break in their favor. This is how you do it. I mean, there's really nothing that I can look at on this team that I would have done differently at this point. We do have 5 remaining draft slots. We've got to get a kicker. We've got to get a defense. Probably want to get a backup quarterback at some point. And then that leaves us 2 more spots that the running back well has dried up. There really isn't a lot left unless
is Sean Tucker still out there?
Let me check. That's a good one. Because we did get sniped by Rashad White on 1 pick. Sean Tucker is still out there.
Okay.
And then Kendra Miller, who we talked about, probably not super interested in. Miles Sanders, Rashad Smith, they're still out there as well too. I know Rashad Smith, he was a guy that I know you were very high on earlier. I was as well. not getting the best feelings out of camp so far, but I think it's too early to panic. Oh, we're on the clock though.
Okay.
Jalen Coker, Diami Brown, Calvin Austin, Sean Tucker. Do you think Sean Tucker's the move
Let's
here?
go ahead and take Sean Tucker here.
I like it.
I mean, look, here's what I know about Tucker. The Bucks love him. They
Yes.
love him. Every time someone from that team talks about him, they say, we love him. He's a starting running back in this league. We want to use him more. Now, they also love Irving and they also love White, and they have their roles segmented out pretty well for these guys. But this also is going to be one of the best offenses in the league. So again,
Oh, I knew where he was going with that before we got a quick little freeze there. But yeah, one of the best offenses in the league. And if he needs to step in, we saw what he could do last year, 36 points per game. Oh, lost you for a quick second there, so I picked it up. But lost you at good offense. And I was just saying that in the one spot start that we saw last year, I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it was 36 points, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
193 total yards.
Yeah.
On only like 17 touches.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's a guy that undrafted, I believe, right? Or was he a 7th round pick? I can't remember.
Undrafted because of a heart condition, but more of a third, fourth round out of my alma mater, Syracuse. There goes a Coker. That's too bad. You know, I'm okay with taking our backup quarterback. I think that at this point, it's probably Anthony Richardson. It's kind of a layup at this point, just because we know
might have missed him. Did Torrey Horton go off the board already?
He did.
That one hurts. Torrey Horton's a guy that I am quite a big fan of. But we talked through some of these other Calvin Austin, Diami Brown, Deontay Thornton. Was Calvin Austin the one that you said?
Yeah, but I think Anthony Richardson would be. I think just
yes, Anthony Richardson. Definitely.
Let's just go ahead and take Anthony Richardson at this point because we know that he's got that high ceiling. We know he's probably more likely to start than Daniel Jones at this point. And
I think the fear with Anthony Richardson, the only fear is that he's not going to start every single game. But big whoop, when he's starting, you put him in your lineup, and when he's not, he's on the bench. Like it's not like you have to worry like about tough matchups or anything like that. When he's on the field, he's a top 12 quarterback, and it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, and I see that my man north of Vermont's asking about Bryce Young, and Bryce Young is a fine pick here too. I think he has a much higher floor, but lower ceiling than Anthony Richardson. And again, I'm just concerned with ceiling here. I don't expect we're going to need a quarterback except for Jalen Hurts. Bye week, I don't want to bloom him by saying that. But like you said, we're going to take a kicker in a defense. We got one other pick. Oh, and part of the problem with Brashard Smith, who I liked a lot more earlier in the process, Dave, is that we're down to our last spot. Okay, here's what you don't want to do, and we've kind of set ourselves up so that we have to be careful because we don't want to release. We don't want to in the first waiver wire cut. We don't want to cut Rico Dowdle. We don't want to cut Blake Corum. Right? We don't want Monungai. We don't want to release these guys. Sean Tucker. We want to see. Hey, Rashad White, when he tests his groin in week 1, maybe he aggravates it. Right? So we have to take somebody. I like to call these players early reveal players. I think Anthony Richardson qualifies. Where you want a player or two that at your bench that that you're going to be able to move on with no remorse in those first few waiver wire runs, which are so important. So I think as we're thinking about our last pick that's not a kicker or a defense, we want it to be somebody that we're going to see in week 1 whether they're worth anything or not. And we'll be able to make a pretty easy decision. And I have a player in mind, but I'm curious who your player might be.
Ooh, Dante Thornton is the one that jumped out.
That's a good one.
I think we'll know immediately whether he is the guy or not. Like if he's playing as the X and he's getting targeted, feel pretty good about that. And if he is just that sacrificial guy clearing out space for Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, you probably cut him from the team and move on.
Beautiful. I like it. Well, let's see if we can get him to skate through. Another player, the player I'll just toss out there as a late round guy to take and see what happens is Kevontae Turpin. Because he's Brian Schottenheimer loves him. They gave him a 3-year, $18 million contract in the offseason. It sounds like
with the starters.
Right. He's pushing Jalen Tolbert for the wide receiver 3 role. Think about Kevontae Turpin on like smoke screens and quick passes to get the ball in his hands when defenses are worried about CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. All right. And then the other thing is we keep bemoaning the Cowboys backfield. There's no juice really. I mean, Jaden Blue's got some straight line acceleration. But what we're not thinking about is what if Turpin is the guy that adds the juice. I like that Isaiah Likely pick. Right. What if Turpin, but that's again a guy you're going to have to sit on for a few weeks, which we're not looking for that. So what if Turpin gives them the extra juice? What if Turpin is the guy that gets like some toss sweeps or jet sweeps or otherwise, like, hey, now you're getting him in maybe 3, 4, 5 catches and some extra touches as a running back, but he can take any touch to the house, right?
Yeah.
And I believe that NFCC also gives you the 6 points for kick returns touchdowns.
I believe so. I can look that up real quickly while you filibuster here.
Yeah, hey, that's like I got a major in that one. So you have
Yes, 6 points.
So we have the rule change, another rule change with kickoffs. So the more kickoffs are going to be in play. We know that Turpin is one of the most dangerous guys on kick returns. We know that the coach loves him and wants to get him more involved on the offense. We know they're looking for more juice out of the backfield. And then if Kevontae Turpin only touches the ball 2 or 3 times in week 1,
got him.
We just move on. So
and we get that rookie that we said, wait, this guy's a starter. We got to put in a bid for him. Yeah.
Right. So, that's but I think your suggestion's also a really good one.
Turpin is one of those guys. He's so buried here in ADP that I kind of forgot about him. I was just looking at the players that were available, but in DraftKings, I've been drafting him a lot because that's another best ball tournament that goes 20 rounds deep. And so often I'm very aggressive on CD Lamb, taking him as early as second in my drafts. So if I'm picking from 2 through 5, I'm ending up with CD Lamb, which means I typically end up with Dak Prescott in the middle rounds, and then Kevontae Turpin is just like the auto pick for me in round 20 in those builds. And that's a little more, game theory, trying to stack in best ball tournaments. We're not doing that quite as much in this one here, but the upside case for Turpin, I mean, just such a good player and still relatively young. This is year 3 for him, I believe, right?
Right.
Yeah. So still a potentially untapped ceiling.
Growing into his game. And Equilibrium's in the chat room mentioned Jalen Lane. That's another good one. If Terry McLaurin doesn't play week 1, and Jalen Lane has that speed, and we've already seen Jalen Lane show up for them as far in practice. His just like Jalen Royals, that was another good one that just went off the board. If Roshy Rice's suspension goes down, Jalen Naylor is going to have 3 games probably as a starter for the Vikings as a deep threat. You mentioned there's a lot of good deep threats. Tommy Brown, Calvin Austin. Makes me wish it was the best ball league. That's something for the best.
You feel good about those guys in best ball. You never
really put them
in your lineup.
every round from like 15 to 20 in best ball leagues, there are wide receivers you want to take, and you should think about that in your builds. It doesn't quite work the same for redraft. So but we've got there goes Dante Thornton. So someone else is thinking the same way you were. That's a good one though, Mike Gesicki. So I'm okay with Turpin here.
Yeah, let's go with Kevontae Turpin here. And then it's fun that I have you on the show because so often when I get into these late rounds, I say, I don't really study defenses and kickers because I've got 2 great guys, Sigmund Bloom and Adam Harstead, and they do the work for me with their rent a kicker and rent a defense. So now that I actually have you on here, do we want to talk defenses first or do we want to talk kickers first for these last 2 picks?
Let's do defenses first because I do the rent a defense column and give you streaming defenses, and I've got one up my sleeve for week 1. And it looks like based on the defenses that have gone, we're going to be able to get them here. Adonai Mitchell's. I mean, you have to sit on a player like Adonai Mitchell. You have to sit on a player like Jermaine Burton. That's why we weren't looking at him in that last round. So the defense is the Rams. And there's a certain team that had trouble protecting the quarterback last year, Dave. And this year, they're still experimenting with offensive line combinations, I believe. And they fired everyone having to do the offensive line, and they traded away their best offensive linemen. In week 1, they're facing the Los Angeles Rams. The team is the Houston Texans. And Los Angeles Rams also, by the way, have this guy, Jared Verse. He's coming,
like
folks.
Aaron Donald 2.0. Yeah, it's unbelievable what he's doing out there.
He's coming. So we're going to start the Rams as our week 1 defense, and then we'll go from there.
Another one that the chat talked me into a few weeks ago that I've warmed up to is the Arizona Cardinals. Have a not the best defense, but it seems like that they are. Yeah, they've got a nice easy opening schedule, so one that you can just plug in and hopefully rely on for a few weeks. But so often that happens too, and the reason, say you don't know this, but I plug your Rent a Defense article every single week when I do this show, and the nice thing is like you. As the writer, you have to do it every single week because that is your obligation. But the reality is anybody following that by week like 3 or 4 or 5, you might just be out of the weekly rent a defense. You might just stumble into one that is good enough to be that plug and play defense. And same thing with Adam Harstead with the kicker. So I think people get scared off by streaming defenses and streaming kickers and streaming tight ends and quarterbacks because they say, I don't want to have to deal with that every single week. But the reality is more often than not, you deal with it for the first 3 or 4 weeks and then it just kind of figures itself out from there.
Yeah. And also the matchups as you go deeper in the season, there are more juicy matchups, or you can
Mhm.
sometimes take advantage of weather depending on your scoring system. By the way,
Injuries.
yeah, injuries. I always like to say this. It's this time of year. Know your scoring system and lineups. 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 It changes the value of players. It's the easiest edge. Like just read the directions, It's the easiest edge you can get in fantasy football. And if your defenses are being scored with yards allowed and points allowed, it's that much easier in the second half of the year to find the matchups you want against backup quarterbacks, weather games. It's not difficult. And I love leagues where defenses can score upwards of 20, 25 points. It's just another part of the puzzle. It's another thing you can take advantage of where that you can find these defenses on the waiver wire. And then, like you said, Dave, you will occasionally, usually the best defense of the year is drafted late or not drafted. But 3 or 4 weeks into the season, we can see oh, this is going to be one of those defenses.
Well,
And go ahead.
you'll remember what year. I want to say it was probably 6 or 7 years ago. There was a year the Patriots were just completely off the radar. And they were a defense that everybody picked up off of waivers. I had them in a handful, and you were just getting 25 points per week. It was
Oh,
like getting
right.
an RB1 in your defense spot, and they were an undrafted defense in
Right.
every fantasy league that year.
Yeah, I remember having the list of here are the players that have outscored the Patriots defense as of week 6 or something like that. And it was
Derrick
a
Henry.
short list. Yeah. It was a short list. So, it's good. It keeps you on your toes. And I guess this is the kicker round now. Have people been taking kickers?
Yeah, you got to close out with the kicker. But I do want to ask a question. I see the chat
Yeah.
has been buzzing about Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, I love him. I do this accuracy rankings contest, and I am second in tight end rankings over the multi-year accuracy. And a lot of that is because I was the only person that was ranking Taysom Hill highly, and he just kept crushing it year after year.
Yeah.
What is your expectation here? Are you hearing anything from New Orleans? Because what I see is, 35 years old, a brutal knee injury late in the season. I see a lot of people still drafting him late. I kind of have concerns about him coming back this year or at all.
Yeah, that's the thing is that the nature of that knee injury makes
Right.
it so that, and this is a guy who relied on incredible athleticism and just will as a football player. So at the point he's at, the recruitive powers aren't as strong as they were earlier in his career. And I just think that it's been really fun. We'll always have Taysom Hill. I mean, one of the fun things about playing fantasy football or being a New Orleans Saints fan is that, 30 years from now, Dave, we could be senile, in dementia or something like that. And someone could say Taysom Hill. And
I'll
I
get
love
goosebumps.
Taysom Hill. Oh, that guy's great. I love watching him play football. So I just think that it's run out for him though. And I'm not gonna, and the other thing is he's not going to be full speed to start the season.
Mm-hmm.
So are you sure we have to take a kicker? Do other people take kicker?
We do. Yeah. There's a lot of NFC regulars in the chat, and they informed me because I was like, I'm not going to take a defense or the first stream I was doing this. I was like, I'm not going to take a defense or a kicker. I'm just going to load up on these running backs, and I'll figure that out later. And I was informed that you cannot do that. You are
it's
forced to draft.
You can even if they have waivers. See, this is me showing my ignorance of the format. That again, know your scoring and lineups. Know the rules. Whether there's you can carry because if there's pre-week 1 waivers, you can get away with that. But let's go ahead and take a kicker here.
I'd say in any of your sleeper leagues or ESPN, wherever else you're playing, if you can do that, definitely don't take a kicker. There's no reason to take a kicker. Just take that Brashard Smith or whoever that running back is that we're still waiting to get more pieces of the puzzle, and that just buys you extra time. You could always figure out the kicker later. Kickers available, though. Let me just read them down to ADP here. We got the Broncos, Chiefs, Commanders.
Oh, it's a team kicker. That's what threw me off.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. I should have. That's why you weren't seeing the kicker names. You were seeing the team names.
I like the Broncos. I like the Buccaneers. I think the Buccaneers without Chris Godwin to start the season might be selling more field goals. I like the Broncos because they're
the Jags. You see Cam Little booting a
70 yard. I know.
That's
Travis
awesome.
Hunter and Cam Little. These are your faces of the franchise now. So yeah, I think that the Broncos play Tennessee. Oh, that was the Broncos team kicker that we just went, isn't it?
So Chiefs, Commanders, Dolphins, Falcons, Ravens, Eagles, 49ers, Bills, Cardinals, Raiders, Rams, Seahawks. There's a lot still available, but all the indoor teams are gone for the most part.
Team kickers. Chiefs
Kansas City scores a lot.
Chiefs, right? Chiefs are fine. We're fine.
Ideally, we might swap that out at some point in season. If if Minnesota's kicker gets dropped or the Lions or Dallas, through bye weeks. Jordan Whittington is another guy that I've really liked spending my 20th round pick on. Kind of a weird pick, but I see him almost similar to like an injury away
Yeah.
running back. There's
Yeah.
going to be no projectable volume for him, but if Puka Nacua gets injured, you can kind of plug him in and expect like
Yeah.
75, 80% of the production. But before we log off here, Sig, let's go ahead and
Sure.
take a look at the board one more time here. As we were going through these picks, I always try to think like, what could I have done differently? And I
Mhm.
think the one in hindsight,
Mhm.
Jahori Krosky-Merritt over Rico Dowdle, had we done that, I would have liked that. That would have been your guy. I didn't expect him to go off the board that early. Will Shipley is another one that I like drafting a lot that got away. So team one, really sharp drafter over there. But overall, I like what we did. We filled out our lineup early. We got an elite tight end. I mean, George Kittle and Jalen Hurts, would it surprise you if both of these guys are number one at their position this year?
Right. That's the whole thing, right? We have upside built in everywhere except running back too, but we've got upside with Tyrone Tracy. We've got upside with Zach Charbonnet. And then at flex off the bat, I mean, I think Shakir is going to be an awesome flex as long as he can get healthy in the first few weeks of the season. And we have Marvin Mims swinging for the fences. And then we have all these other guys that may come through for us. I mean, an injury away, Corum, Dowdle, an injury away, Monangai, an injury away. So we have a lot of chips out there, and all we need is one of them to hit.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I like too is the Anthony Richardson pick almost feels a little defensive more than anything else. Like I'd rather him be on our bench. And Jeff Bell and I, we did this last year when we were drafting. We paid up early for Lamar Jackson, and then we got Jaden Daniels in round 15, and we said, you know what, that's fine. I'd rather Jaden Daniels be on our bench than in our opponent's lineup, and that's kind of how I feel with Anthony Richardson. So I am very happy with how this one turned out. I think this is a great team, Sig. Looking forward to managing this one throughout the season, and hopefully we are in the running for the big prize up top. Before we sign off, you got anything that you're working on right now that you'd like to plug? I know you're just pumping out articles and the Audible and all that stuff, but let the people know where they can find
football guys on the couch this week. The return of Evan Silva, so that's always fun.
Great show.
That's fantastic. I love Evan, and I love all of you out there. And thank you, folks, for supporting us at Football Guys. Again, there's a few magazines left. You make this so much fun for us, and you make it so positive and exciting. We love serving you. It is a privilege. It is a pleasure. And it is a privilege and pleasure to draft a team with you, Dave. We got to do this every year, Dave.
This is a blast. Yeah, we'll do it again next year. I mean, hey, Sig, don't, you ask and I can get you back. I got other live streams that I'm doing. I can have you back on next week if you want to.
All right.
But I want to thank everyone so much for taking the time to tune in today. We would not be able to do this without you. For myself, for Sig, we will see you soon.